Hi everyone. Today I wanted to discuss the first part of President Bush's address to the joint session of Congress and the American people, and why it was persuasive to the United States of America. His speech was presented 9 days after a set of unprecedented attacks that occurred on September 11, 2001. President George W. Bush began his speech with, "In the normal course of events, presidents come to this chamber to report on the State of the Union. Tonight, no such report is needed. It has already been delivered by the American people." In my opinion, this passage alone brings up the hope and spirit of the American people. President Bush is trying to express his respect and admiration for the American people by acknowledging the unity of them during times of crisis. By being able to establish an emotional connection from your leaders to your followers, it provides an easier road to be able to present a persuasive speech. It helps set the stage for a powerful message that would highlight how strong and resilient the nation was during times of tragedy. President Bush used multiple strategies of emotional appeal. On one account, he brought up the courage of ordinary citizens, one being Todd Beamer. He was a passenger that demonstrated exceptional bravery and rushed one of the terrorists during the attacks to help save other people on the ground. He also mentioned Beamer's wife, Lisa Beamer, who was present at the speech to help connect to the audience at a personal level.
American people. We have seen it in the courage of passengers who rushed terrorists to save others on the ground. Passengers like an exceptional man named Todd Beamer. And would you please help me welcome his wife, Lisa Beamer, here tonight.
The applause after mentioning Lisa was an important moment that helps everyone realize the impact of the tragedy. President Bush was able to provide a personal connection by incorporating the heroism and sacrifice of Todd Beamer. Not only was the applause a customary response, it was a collection of appreciation, empathy, and solidarity. President Bush also provided a lot of vivid imagery, which helped people picture what was going around them. For example, he mentioned the unfurling of flags, the lighting of candles, the giving of blood, the saying of prayers in English, Hebrew, and Arabic. This part of his speech helped invoke emotions and gave everyone a sense of what the American people were experiencing. The imagery creates a shared experience for everyone to picture and show the emotional impact on the American people from these attacks. Earlier in the speech, both Republicans and Democrats came together and sung "God Bless America" on the steps of the Capitol. President Bush recalled this event and thanked their leadership for showing that even when two sides disagree, that they could come together in times of tragedy. He explained how they did more than just singing, but acted on the best interests of the country to help rebuild their community and meet the needs of their military. President Bush was able to reassure the country that despite their differences, their country stood together in the face of adversity. The president created a sense of urgency around the American people, stating, "Tonight, we are a country awakened to danger and called to defend freedom." He wanted to capture the collective anger and grief felt by the American people to help convey a message to lead to a call for immediate action. Instead of staying in mourning, President Bush wanted the American people to understand that the nation could not afford to be passive when in face of a threat. He assured the public that the government would address the perpetrators and also ensure accountability. He was able to rally the nation around the countrywide threat and help set the moods of the American people to support his decision when facing the problem.
Hello, everyone. I will analyze the next portion of a former President George W. Bush's 9/11 speech. In this portion of analysis, I will focus on how President Bush uses authority, logic, and the emotions to appeal to and inspire the citizen of America during a time of a crisis. In this portion of the speech, President Bush appeals emotionally to the United States citizen by vividly describing to them who Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden are and the crimes they have committed against the US and humanity. The US citizen knows the pain that they experienced and personally from the attack on 9/11 at the hands of Al Qaeda. But President Bush further drives home the emotional pain of sharing what Al Qaeda has also done to their own people in their own country. President Bush used the words like brutalize and repressing to show the severity of what the people of Afghanistan experience on a daily basis. President Bush described how people are starving, how women cannot attend school, and how men could be jailed if their beards were not long enough. These simple yet impactful description of the hardships the people of Afghanistan endure help the US citizen relate emotionally and personally. This type of emotional appeal is clearly very effective in getting President Bush's point across to the US citizen. Aside from using emotional appeals to persuade the audience, President Bush also used logic and ethics to ground his message, provide clear structure, and create credibility in the beginning of this portion. He shares the fact of who and what these terrorist organizations are by sharing that they span across 60 countries with thousands of members and are trained in tactics of terror. He's able to solidify the trust the US citizens have in him as an authoritative figure, and therefore it is easier for them to accept and trust in what he has to say. Later on, he draws similarity between Al Qaeda and other similar radical visions like fascism and Nazism, as these are widely understood on the condemned ideologies. It is easier for the audience to relay and follow what President Bush's message is. This type of analogy also allows President Bush to appeal to the audience emotionally again. Additionally, by specifically separating the terrorist organization and the large Muslim population in the world in his speech, President Bush demonstrated that he's not only approaching the situation with emotion, but he has identified who is truly responsible logically. By doing this, he separates the terrorists from the large Muslim community, making it clear that the enemy is a radical faction. This helps in preventing the confusion of Islam with terrorism, an important reminder in a world with diverse cultures and religions. This also ensures that he does not alienate any portion of the US citizen he is addressing in this speech. In my opinion, this portion of President Bush's speech is also to motivate and inspire Congress and the American people to support fighting back against Al Qaeda and terrorist organizations. Throughout this speech, President Bush has used multiple elements to make his message clear and persuasive. In addition to emotional, logical, and ethical appeals, President Bush also brings an authoritative element when he lists out the demands to Al Qaeda. At the time of crisis, people look to a strong leader to lead them forward, so only appealing emotionally is not enough. Through the demands President Bush lists and the sentence, our way of terror will not end until every terrorist group of global reach has been found, stopped, and defeated. He shows his audience that he is authoritative and determined to see this through. This is my analysis on this portion of President Bush's speech, and I will now pass it to my group member for the next section. Thank you.
Uses certain terms and words to inspire and motivate people. The main purpose of the speech is to persuade people, first off, that they are safe and to not panic. But the more important reason for the speech is to persuade people to fight back against terrorism. Bush is able to be an effective and persuasive communicator because of the way he uses the elements of persuasion. He has the ethos, which is the credibility from his title as the president, but also from his long-standing career. He walks us through his logic or his logos throughout the whole speech, telling you what he's doing and why he's doing it. But most importantly, he relies on the pathos or the emotions behind his words. Throughout the speech, he appeals to people's fear. He uses words like terror and threaten in order to create like a very hostile and very scary possibility of the future. Similar to Nancy Durrett's secret structure of great talks, Bush is able to create these huge gaps between the what is and what could be by creating really low lows with the hostile and scary possibilities of the future he was describing by using words like terror and threaten, and then comparing that to the quote unquote good reality of a nice, peaceful world. In terms of the definition of persuasion, Bush is also very effective in this way. He creates a very black and white model of the possible outcomes, the good and the bad one, and leaves very little room for interpretation as to what they are. He presents these choices in an atmosphere of free choice, and the audience has complete control over what option they want to go with. However, the way that he presents these options is part of why he is so persuasive. One seems very sad, very desolate, very tragic, while the other seems like the obvious choice and is very safe and very peaceful. And he lets the audience come to the conclusion as to what they want to do all on their own. While it seems like he's almost forcing their hand, he is just a very persuasive speaker. Overall, in the third section of this text, President Bush demonstrates that he is a very persuasive and motivating speaker. He uses things like the secret structure, the elements of persuasion, the definition of persuasion, and the 15 basic appeals in a way that is very, very effective, making him a very persuading speaker.
Hi, my name is Kevin. My group and I decided to analyze the speech titled Address to a Joint Session of Congress and the American People, given by former President George W. Bush after the 9/11 attack. The last little section of the speech that I analyzed, to me, seemed like a call to action, a sense of hope, a sense of security, a sense of stability. He, in the beginning of the section that I was analyzing, he's asking for the people's cooperation, patience, participation, and confidence in the American economy. And I feel like he was trying to get at a little more personal, because to me, when I hear spokespeople ask something of me, then I feel like, oh, he's asking me, It's not just like, oh, it's not just someone random, he's asking the people of America to just be patient, participate, and confide in the American economy. Throughout the last bit of his speech, he knows, or he explains to the people that the attack was horrible and that it's something that's going to take a while to recover from, but that the American people will get through with the help of each other. He knows that they're going to face challenges, but with the help of each other and the help of the law enforcement, he knows that together that they can take steps to strengthen America's economy. Sorry. He really uses the word "we will come together." We will come together to really, ingrain that together things will get done. He goes on to mention two leaders of high power. So the governor, George Pataki, and Mayor Rudolph Giuliani. Sorry if I mispronounced his name or butchered it. But I feel like the reason why he used those two names was sort of a sense of ethos, a sense of credibility, of trust. When he mentions those two names, he mentions them because he tells the people that together, so the work of the governor, the mayor, and the president, they're all going to work to rebuild New York City, which obviously is going to give the people a sense of hope, a sense of like, oh, like three people in power, like easy, like New York City will get better, you know. And towards the last little bit of his speech, he gets a little bit more personal by mentioning of a police officer named George Howard who died at the World Trade Center trying to save people. He mentions how his mom Arlene gave the president, so gave George W. Bush, a police shield as a proud memorial to her son. And he sees this as a reminder of all the people who died and of a task that has not ended. So I think he chose to mention George Howard because he wanted people to know that people were lost. And it was a very tragic event that happened, but it's something that isn't finished. People are always going to remember that day. As he mentions that people always remember, but with time, people heal, places heal, places get better, and he goes to saying that the course of this conflict is not known, yet its outcome is certain. Freedom and fear, justice and cruelty have always been at war, and we know that God is not neutral between them. But the last little bit of his speech, or like the last thing, fellow citizens, we will meet violence with patient justice, assured of the rightness of our cause and confident in the victories to come. And all that lies before us. May God grant us wisdom, and may he watch over the United States of America. So just overall, like the last little bit of his speech is really a call to action. I feel like with the use of pathos, ethos, and just the constant use of certain phrases was really a way to get the people to feel safe, hopeful in that America will, recover and rebuild from the attack. Thank you.